Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Rausen Pereira. The Union Cabinet on Wednesday approved the introduction of a bill that will codify relevant provisions of 4 existing laws and intends to increase the legislative protection of minimum wages to the entire workforce. Media reports suggested the Codes on Wages Bill 2019 will be introduced in the ongoing budget session of Parliament and would benefit about 50 crore workers. According to media reports, the codification proposes to simplify 32 central labour laws into 4 codes to bring them in sync with the emerging economic situation, facilitate easier compliance by establishments, promote ease of living and ensure labour welfare and wage and social security for workers. The Code of Wages Bill is the first in a series of 4 labour codes. It seeks to subsume relevant provisions of the Minimum Wages Act of 1948, Payment of Wages Act of 1936, Payment of Bonus Act of 1965 and Equal Remuneration Act of 1976. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyse the need for labour reforms and what the 4 labour codes mean. Joining me on the programme today are Chakshu Roy, Head of Outreach, PRS Legislative Research, Bhanuchandar Nagarajan, former consultant, World Bank, Washington, D.C., and Piyush Singh, advocate of the Supreme Court. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Chakshu, I'd like to begin the program with you. First, let's try and understand and put into perspective what the Codes on Wages Bill 2019 is all about.
Frank, for a long time, the government has been in consideration of how do you ensure that compliance of labor laws in the country can be made slightly more easier. One of the biggest challenges that we have faced in the country, especially in labor-intensive industries, is the amount of paperwork and the amount of compliance that factories or establishments have to maintain when they have a workforce. So the idea was to put together distinct codes which would subsume all the labor related legislation into 4 categories. And one of the categories relates to remuneration, and that's the subject that we're talking about today. It is also interesting to note that this is not a new bill, right? Conversation about this bill started in the previous Parliament. Because the bill was not able to be passed, the bill lapsed. It was a Lok Sabha bill. And a couple of weeks ago, when Rajya Sabha started, one of the things that the Honorable Chairperson said at the beginning of Rajya Sabha was that there should be some kind of a conversation about revival of pending legislation which have lapsed because of the dissolution of a house. And in the last 2 weeks, we have seen that the cabinet has taken up and cleared a number of bills which were lapsed, and those bills are now slowly getting introduced in either Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha.
All right. Piyush, I'd like to bring you to the picture now. So how important is it for us to simplify all of our archaic labour laws?
See, this would be the first step, as you have rightly pointed out in the introduction, that this is one of the first code to codify the 44 odd legislations we have. And most of the labour legislations range back from 1910, 1920s, 1930s. Now, this step, I would say, one of the most important highlight of this particular code would be having a national minimum wage throughout the country. So, one of the there are 4 laws which this code is going to subsume. One is Payment of Wages Act, Minimum Wages Act, Payment of Bonus Act, Equal Remuneration Act. So, with respect to the payment of wages or payment of minimum wages, when it comes down to payment of minimum wages was subscribed, or as per the act, it was for every state government and central government, because labour law is a subject which is there in the concurrent list. So though central government has been enacting legislations into it, even the state government is empowered to have amendments or rules or regulations to have a particular framework in their own state when it comes to labour laws. So with respect to minimum wages, so far there were 1700 odd employments, or I would say professions or categories, which were covered under the Minimum Wages Act. But by this particular law, there is going to be a national minimum wage throughout the country. So it's going to be with prerogative now, as per the law, for the central government to have a national minimum wage, which can be for the country, and there will be again a national minimum wage which a center can set up for each and every state, which can be a different national minimum wage. So, but as per the concurrent list, again the states are empowered to have their own national minimum wage, but that has to be in consonance with the national minimum wage set up by the center. So in consonance, we mean the states, every state government can have the national minimum wage to be equivalent to or higher than the national minimum wage set up by the center, not less than that. So to that extent, the states are now empowered to revise that national minimum wage, but not go anything below it. So I would say that is one of the most important highlights. And to answer your question that how it is going to look into the archive laws, as Chakshu has rightly pointed out, that all those legislation, when it comes down to, for example, Equal Remuneration Act, this particular code states that with respect to, on basis of gender, the government or any state or central government or any employer for that matter will not be able to discriminate when it comes to the payment of wages. That is one of the highlights. For bonus, again, it has a benchmark for every state was giving bonus. I would say it was 1.25, 1.5%. And again, bonus was required only for employment where there are 20 or 25 employees in an organization and the salary is less than 21,000 per month. Under the new code, bonus will be applicable on all employees. Of course, that minimum salary will be set up by the central government, that only this will be the threshold of the minimum salary. Below anyone below that will be entitled to the bonus, which is 8.33%, which has been fixed up to a maximum of 20% of the bonus. So that is how I would say this code beautifully encapsulates almost all those laws which have been prevalent so far.
All right. Banu, I'd like to bring you into the picture now and to bring up your experience that you had with the World Bank and so on and so forth. How important is it to have a basic minimum wage as far as the workforce is concerned, and is this the right step or the first step in the right direction?
Absolutely. In this government, one of the first things that the Prime Minister said was to make India a $5 trillion economy and a $10 trillion economy by 2032. If we have to achieve these goals, first, second generation reforms have to be carried out, factor reforms in land and labor. And labor is what we are talking about today. Our labor laws actually, as explained by my fellow panelists, have been extremely complicated. In fact, if you look at minimum wages, there are like 2,000 different minimum wages, which are going to be rationalized by this code, right? And to become a $5 trillion economy, you have to make doing business easy in India. This is also one of the stated goals, that we have to come from 76 in the ease of doing business ranking to 50. That's the stated goal. If you have to achieve this, which is required for making it a manufacturing hub or a thriving service hub, this ease of compliance is required, which this code brings into. And also, like one of the fundamental issues is also like labor rights, right? Like you cannot hire people and not pay them properly. So all of these issues are encapsulated and brought together in this code. So that is how I see it going forward.
Okay, Chakshu, what are the three other labor codes, and how is it going to help really the labor workforce on the whole?
Frank, I think there are a couple of important conversations that need to be had about this particular piece of legislation. One, Piyush in his opening remarks very beautifully laid out what the bill is doing or what the bill intends to do. But here are two or three things to think about, right? I mean, currently minimum wage is determined at the state level. So what that means is that Haryana might have a different minimum wage for, let's say, an employee in an organization who makes tea or coffee, and that minimum wage might be slightly different for another employee who does photocopying, right, or a messenger boy. So minimum wages are different for different types of categories of work that people do, and they also differ from state to state. And the reason for them to differ from state to state could be also because of economic opportunity available, cost of living in that particular state, and the kinds of things that are done in different parts of the country. So what the minimum, the wage code bill intends to do is to provide either a floor for the entire country, or floors for separate states, or floor for the separate region in the country. Now what that means is that if a floor is set at X, states have either to be at X or X plus something. They cannot go below. Now this raises two questions. What if the floor is set at X, but it kind of distorts the wage market in a state where the current wages being offered for that kind of employment are below X. So that's one conversation to have. Also, the next question that it raises then is, what happens when the floor is set at X and, the states have to be above, but some states might want to be, as above the floor as they would like. But a couple of years later, if the economic situation doesn't turn out well, can they come back but still be at the floor, right? So that's a conversation that when the bill comes out, we'll have clarity on that. So if states go up, do they have a choice only to go up above the floor, or can they come below. but still be at the floor, right? So, the center set for my state X, I went 5X, the economy slowed down, and I want to come down to 2X. Now, is that a possibility or not, right? So that's the third thing. Finally, what should be the rationale of how minimum wages should be determined in a country which is as vast as diverse, and what will be the consultations that the states will be able to feed their inputs in when it comes to determining the minimum wage either for the country or for a region or for a state. Also, it's going to impact competitiveness between states. So
Absolutely.
Those are useful conversations that our fellow panelists can kind of weigh
Absolutely. I think let's take the point that Chakshu is making forward. Piyush, as far as labor reforms are concerned, and as far as these codes are concerned, at some point in time, at some level, do you see some kind of a conflict arising between the center and the states?
Quite possible, Frank. India being a federal country and the kind of federal structure we have, especially with labor laws being in the concurrent list, and as Chakshu has rightly pointed out, what will happen in case a state would want to come down below a national minimum wage which the state has set up, not the center has set up. So right now the proposed bill never had that I would say discretion with the state governments. Only central government could reduce the national minimum wage for the center, for the union government, or for the nation, and also for the respective state. So if a state goes higher, they will not have that opportunity to come back or reduce that state national minimum wage. That option will not be there. To that limited extent, I would say there can be a conflict. But I would say for most of the legislations which are there, or for most of the subjects which are there in the concurrent list, this issue is always there. But I would say when it comes to a perception or dealing with a subject like labor laws, with which, as you said, that 50 crores people would be covered by it. And as also in his expert committee report stating that 92% of the Indian population comes under the unorganized sector. So I would say that most of the states should be incentivized for taking this labor law legislation forward and giving this legislation a much more boost rather than holding it up. So to that extent, I would say the conflicts would be avoided, because most of the state governments would want to have it implemented and would want to be in consonance with the central government.
Sure. All right. Banu, as far as this particular issue is concerned, it's not something new. It's something that has been going on for a long, long time now. The debate, the conversation, and the discourse surrounding it has been going on for several years. So, what has taken us this long really to go through with such kind of labor reforms on a priority scale? How important are labor reforms?
As far as I know, the first time the necessity of a labor code or simplification of existing labor laws came into debate during the 1991 reforms. But since way too many reforms were carried during that time, probably it was postponed for another day. Then there was a Labour Commission in 2002 that recommended the few steps that we actually that seeing the light of the day, or will see the light of the day soon. But the UPA also tried to do this, but they had to convince the coalition partner in CPIM, and they were unable to do so. So it actually took a very circuitous path, and we are here. In fact, even now, the labor unions have to be convinced about this, which is actually a political job that's yet to be done. Then, as my fellow panelists pointed out, since it's in the concurrent list, there are many states that will cry foul about violating the federal structure or the spirit of the federal structure. One of the issues, like my fellow panelists pointed out, was there is a 5-year freeze on the minimum labor wage set by the states. Okay. Assume the government sets the floor rate as rupees 200 for a particular industry. Okay, the states have to comply with it. It can't go below 200. even if the center makes it some, say, from 200 to 190, the states will still have to stick at 200 for 5 years. So there is an amount of stickiness and inflexibility to adapt to the current economic conditions. That is one thing. Second thing is, there is it talks about no discrimination on wages between men and women, but there is no talk on discrimination during recruitment, which is actually a kind of something I think over a period of time they will address. Another issue is, like, in the modern day gig economy, how does this minimum wage thing pan out? For example, take Uber drivers, right? So Uber is now saying that Uber drivers are not our employees. Okay, so in this case, like, how do you legislate for it? So that is something that probably will be worked on over the years to come. So there are many such, and how will our MSMEs cope up with the new costs? So that those are like some of the issues that immediately come to mind when we talk about this new law.
Absolutely. Taking the discussion forward now, Chakshu, in your opening remark, you spoke about how the wages bill is not new. You know, it was introduced in the previous government. You know, the Labour Ministry in Modi 1.0 also tried really hard to push through labour reforms, but somehow it didn't materialize. Why is that so?
Frank, I think any piece of legislation requires a lot of deliberation and consensus building. There is a lot of work, that has, gone into discussing how do we want to, reform the labor sector. That conversation has been ongoing, but it is also a contentious conversation, right? The reason it's a politically contentious conversation is because it's a conversation about the wage rights and the rights of, our fellow citizens who might not have enough of a strong voice to speak on their own. So, as Bhanu pointed out, convincing trade unions, it's an ongoing process. And for them to be convinced about the fact that this is something going to be, that this is a good step for them is absolutely imperative. Similarly, the conversation to convince the industry to say that yes, there is going to be a minimum wage, but that minimum wage will be based on scientific criteria. We'll ensure that the industry is either taken into consultation and the minimum wage is decided in consonance with them. So and there will have to be a balancing act. The industry would want a lower minimum wage, and probably the unions would want way higher minimum wage, which might not be possible for the industry to pay. So somehow that balance would have to be carved out. Now, how have we legislated on this issue in the past, right? Especially on contentious legislation which have a lot of state impact. Now, labor is something that the central government is not really impacted by. It is the state governments who have to go ahead and implement it. And I remember that in the last Lok Sabha, one or two directions seem to be suggested. One direction was that you have a lot of consultations, get people onto the table, convince everybody, and then get a bill to Parliament. The other course has been that state governments and state Vidhan Sabhas have legislated on a concurrent list subject. So, for example, the Factories Act has been amended in multiple states to change the definition of factory, so that if it's a small unit, it does not I think the definition of a factory is 10 person using mechanized tools, and some states went above that limit. So they said that for something to be a factory, it has to be 30 people or more, or 40 people or more. The idea was that if you're a smaller unit, you then don't have to comply with the onerous conditions under the Factories Act. And when the state Vidhan Sabha amends a central legislation, that legislation has to be approved by the president. So the president has to sign off on it. So in the last 5 years, we saw a number of legislation which were going to be operational in states. The state Vidhan Sabhas took the lead in amending those legislations. So the contract, the contract labor amendment was amended by Maharashtra and a couple of states. The factories was amended by Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, and I think 6 more states. So that's the other way that has been taken, that if the Parliament is not able to legislate on the subject and a state government is willing to legislate on that subject, then the state Vidhan Sabha does it and then the president signs off it. What will be interesting to see in this particular, parliament is what is the kind of deliberation that takes place. Does it go to a parliamentary standing committee, which then kind of invites, representations from trade unions, industry bodies, and experts like people here on the panel, and then what does it recommend? Does it go with the existing structure that was put together in the 16th Lok Sabha, or does it recommend a new set of provisions for this particular bill?
Absolutely. Piyush, how challenging is it going to be really to push certain legislations like the wages bill, or for that matter, the other 3 codes as well?
Challenges, I would say, for the present government, if it looks like to be really a priority, it should not be much of a challenge. But when it comes to implementation and compliances, as most of the previous existing legislations under the statutory framework, they already have those appointed officers. When a particular code is going to subsume, I would say, 4 or 5 legislations on an average, there would be a definite conflict when it's going to be appointment of those officers, appointment of those statutory authorities, and how compliance is going to happen. So to that extent, I'm going to say that it's going to be a huge challenge, because, for example, there's a labor officer in every city who's commanding a particular area. Now that labor officer is now coming under particular statute where he's supposed to look into a particular statutory establishments. Now when this particular code is going to come, there's going to be some facilitating officers as per this code, and also the previous existing statutory bodies are going to be there. So to that extent, I would say definitely some time is going to take. It may be, I would say, 6 months to a year. But after that, once the statutory framework, or I would say the code comes into implementation, it should be a smooth process then.
Okay. And Banu, so what kind of labor reforms does India need immediately? Say, for instance, in the first 100 days, since the government is talking about, a 100-day plan, talking about a 1,000-day plan. So how would you look at it?
It's quite ambitious to talk about a 100-day plan for labor reforms, because we have taken like a quarter century to reach where we are, right? So, but as my panelists were pointing out, there's a political problem involved as well. See, the central government is going to set the floor of the wage rate, right? So, and the states can set something above it. So, given that, the center might want to keep the floor low. But if the center keeps the floor low, then it can come under attack, saying that, is this how much you want our laborers to earn? So how they actually arrive at the number is going to cause some kind of how to say, it can be controversial. So how they deal with it is something that needs to be seen. But on the whole, this is a much required step, because it's the first step towards formalization. There are like 63 million enterprises in India and only 22 million in the US, which is producing much more than what we do, and only 25% are in formal employment in India. So how we actually, and then there is this huge philosophical question of whether we have a job problem or a wage problem. So all of these will actually kind of slowly get answered over a period of time. But this is a step in the right direction, and I think legislatively it's going to be easy to pass, but the devil is in the details on how they actually come up with the floor rate and how they negotiate with labor unions. There's a lot of political work and political psychology involved in doing this.
Absolutely. All right, quick closing comments from all my guests with the best way forward, starting first with you, Chakshu.
Frank, I remember in the previous Lok Sabha, there was another contentious piece of legislation. It was related to increasing the maternity leave for women. And Parliament took the step of increasing the maternity leave from 6 weeks to 12 weeks. And they were able to do that with a lot of deliberation and consensus building. I hope a similar process of deliberation and debate takes place in Parliament. The bill goes through a parliamentary scrutiny in both houses and also in a standing committee. That will be a great way for Parliament to do this.
All right, Piyush?
Frank, as one just apprehension most of the people have with respect to the bill, this particular code, which Bhanu has also pointed out, when it comes to gender discrimination, with respect to gender wages, they have addressed it. With respect to recruitment, the bill is not explicitly mentioning it. Though Article 14 of the Constitution and other Supreme Court judgments expressly covers both gender recruitment issues, and that should not be a problem with this particular code. But if that issue can be addressed, I would say it would have a huge impact on looking into how men and women would fit into the recruitment process as well.
Absolutely. And Bhanu, close the show for us with your concluding remarks.
The government in its first term went ahead with a lot of social security programs like pension, minimum wages for farmers and so on and so forth. So this is actually a continuation of that. This sets up the basement on which our economy can go very fast. So in that way, it is highly welcome. The benefits of this formalization and this ease of the business of creating, doing business easy in India, it should be very welcome. But hopefully this can be done, and all the political legwork could be done very soon, and we can look forward to a simplified wage regime.
All right. All right then. With that, we'll call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. That's it from me. See you again next time.